This is another race from the Intelligentsia series of 2018. This is the Cat 3 category. This is West Dundee. It's a pretty short course. It's actually longer overall. The course used to go around this corner, and then instead of going left up here, it used to turn right, and that was the back half of the course. Laps used to be about 35-40 seconds. Now I believe they're maybe a minute and a half or so. I don't remember exactly. But this is a pretty easy course on the top half. It gets way more difficult once we start to get down the big hill. Right here, I'm kind of far back. I know I want to move up, but since it's the first lap, the pace is pretty high. And I did miss my clip in at the start, which is one of the reasons that I was so far back, because I had a decent position at the start line. So we're coming down the hill here. The pavement is not great, and also all along the left-hand side, as you'll see, there are some pretty big manhole covers, and they're not flush with the pavement. They're pretty big indents in the ground. There are also some solid-sized seams that you can get your front wheel caught in if you're not careful. And so we come through here. This last corner is pretty tricky as well because it's tighter than 90 degrees. So you lose a ton of your speed coming down that hill, and then as you come back up this leg killer, it's just brutal. I think last year I made it maybe 2 laps with the group before I was dropped and just out of the race completely. I was really hoping to not race this race, but I decided to anyway. And the reason I decided to is because the day before, actually, I was involved in a little bit of a crash during a pretty fast sprint. I think we were going upwards of 36, 38 miles an hour. And one of the guys in front of me lost his front wheel and just went over the bars, and I had nowhere to go since we were mid-sprint, and I just ran into him. Luckily, I didn't hit my head. I didn't hit anything important. My wrist was pretty sore this day, though. As you can see, like I said, it's a pretty tight corner, and somebody washes out there. Luckily, nobody else went down with him, and I was able to just keep my line and just try and stay on the back of the pack. That was really my goal, was to just finish this race. I had no intentions of trying to win or even place, top 10. I didn't think that was going to happen just because this is always a race that's tough for me. As you can see, I start to lose contact with the back of the group here. It was just pretty hot. My heart rate was pretty high this whole race. For some reason, as soon as we would get over the hill, the entire race just slowed down. I don't think there was ever once where somebody got over the hill and then continued to up the pace, which was good for me because I was able to just race through these corners, choosing my own line and try and carry a ton of speed. And the entire race, I was just able to hop back on to the back of the pack right as we got to the downhill, which gave me a little bit of time to recover, and then we would go up the hill again. And so you'll see during this whole race, I'm just kind of boomeranging off the back and hopping back on. So again, here you can see me just carrying speed through the corners, trying to get back onto the back of the group. I was almost always off. It was almost always a situation where the front of the group was exiting the corner as I was coming in, but it was never so hard that I had to go deep enough where I would blow up on the hill and not have time to recover. So you can see here I try and carry a ton of speed down that hill and just kind of slot in wherever there's space, and then again just roll as much speed as I can through the corner and just start to pin it. At the beginning of the race, it was a little harder because there were so many riders that what would happen was I would carry a good amount of speed up the hill, and then there was nowhere really for me to go, so I would have to grab brake when I was behind a bunch of other riders. Here you can see I'm starting to get pretty fatigued, starting to get dropped, but I do again make it back on, just over and over. Off the back, and then just hooked on, holding on for dear life. Right here, this rider is also pretty dead, but it kind of seemed like he had resigned at that point from the race. That seemed to happen the whole race. You know, guys just started dropping after just having to catch back on every lap, which makes sense. It's not something that's a lot of fun. It hurts pretty bad if you have to put in some big digs to get back to the group. But I just kind of just kept passing them by, and slowly but surely the race just dwindled down to, you know, first it was 15 guys, then 12, and I think the race ended up with 10. Right here, teammate Hassan got almost involved in a pretty bad crash. The guy clipped his pedal through the corner and just railed into the side of Hassan. Luckily, he was able to keep it up. I believe the other guy was okay as well. But it was pretty scary to be caught behind that, especially having been involved in the crash the day before. Here there was an attack out of that corner, and as you can see, I'm just able to maintain my speed up the hill this time, which really helps because these little guys can go a whole lot faster up it than I can. So I'm able to maintain speed and then just get back in the group, and this time was easy enough to recover. Was not so lucky this next time up the hill. I believe that Craig is also behind me, and so we got 5 laps to go. I know that I can make it back onto the group, so I'm just kind of slow pedaling. Here comes Craig. He was pretty much in the same boat the whole race as I was. Both of us being a little bit bigger, we were just constantly trying to catch back onto the back of the race. And so you'll see we just take as much speed as we can through these corners, and the whole group is just sitting up every time up the hill, and so it worked out for us pretty well. So we are coming through with 2 to go at this point. The group is pretty tired. Our team's plan from 3 to go was to try and get somebody maybe a couple seconds off the front, and if we couldn't do that, then I was going to set up a sprint through the downhill for Hassan and Jeremy. So we had pretty good speed because of all the kind of chasing back on that I had been doing. I was just sitting in at this point, but Hassan and Jeremy were looking pretty solid. They had the power, and at this point I was just hoping to finish the race. So I'm sitting on here. Somebody attacks out of this corner, which was a pretty good move. It starts to spread out the group pretty quickly. You can see that I had to let a gap open up because I was so tired. And then as we're coming down the hill here, Hassan, I don't know if he hit that pothole or what happened, but he just bounces down on the ground. We were going about 40 miles an hour. Luckily, he was mostly okay. He had some pretty awful rash on his back and his hands and his legs, and he hit his head, but he didn't have any concussions, no broken bones. It was really surprising that he fared as well as he did. I was kind of checking him out through this corner and lost a ton of speed, which was dumb, but I was pretty worried about him, so was not looking where I was going through the corner. I was too busy looking back at Hassan to see if he was getting up off the ground. So as we come through for the last lap, again, the field just slowed down a lot, and I was okay. I was pretty tired, but I knew that I could try and set something up maybe for Jeremy here. So I start to move to the front. You can see the field is just kind of sitting up, relaxed, which is odd for the last lap of a race. Usually it's just full gas, but I think because of that hill and because of having to rail it up that hill so many times, the field was just kind of exhausted. I mean, this was day 6 or 7, I think, of 10 days of racing, so guys were pretty tired here. So I get to the front and I just put out as much power as I can through these corners. just trying to keep the pace high enough where we can maybe have something happen. Jeremy is a good enough bike handler where he can get where he needs to. So I just try and set him up as well as I can. You know, because I was chasing so much during this race, I didn't have a ton left, but I don't think the rest of the field did either. So I just tried to pull as much as I could for Jeremy here. And as we come through this corner, I pretty much just blow up, and the field starts to come around me here. I was pretty happy with how I raced this race. Overall, like, it's a race that I never have done well at before. I was really surprised to be still in it at the end and make a decent finish. I believe that I took 10th overall in this race, which was surprising to me when I found that out. Again here, I just kind of sat up and put in a little bit of a dig, but at this point I have nothing left. I'm really just trying to finish the race strong. It turned out okay. I was happy with the 10th overall. Like I said, I don't think I've ever finished this race before, so to finish 10th on a pretty strong field, I was happy with it. If you enjoyed the video, click like, and if you want to see more from me, click subscribe.